Tony stood frozen in the doorway of their Seoul apartment, watching her husband Hyun-bin pack designer clothes into a suitcase. Her hands trembled as she held the pregnancy test behind her back. She'd been about to tell him the news when she heard him on the phone speaking in Korean to someone. "She's just a phase, mother. I'll end it when I'm ready. She was never meant to be permanent." The words hit like bullets. 3 years of marriage, and he just called her replaceable. Hyun-bin looked up and saw her. For a split second, something flickered in his eyes, but it vanished just as quickly. "How long have you been standing there?" "Long enough."
How long have you been standing
Tony's
there?
voice was steady even though
Long
her world
enough.
was shattering.
Is that really how you
Is
see
that
me?
really how
As
you see me?
temporary?
As temporary. He closed the suitcase
Don't be
with a
dramatic,
sharp
Tony. I
zip.
was just managing my mother's
"Don't be dramatic,
expectations.
Tony.
By calling me
I
replaceable?
was just managing
twisting
my
my
mother's
words.
expectations."
Don't be dramatic,
By
Tony. I
calling
was
me
just managing my
replaceable?
mother's expectations.
"You're twisting my
By
words."
calling me replaceable?
Tony
You're twisting
stepped
my
into
words.
the room, still hiding the pregnancy test. "Then tell me what you meant. Tell me the truth for once. If you want to see how this marriage survives or falls apart, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment telling me what you would do in Tony's position." Now, let's go back to where this all started. 2 years earlier, Tony had been working as a cinematographer on an international film project in Lagos, Nigeria. Her work was gaining recognition, and she'd been hired for a major production that brought Korean star Hyun-bin to Africa for location shooting. She'd seen his dramas, knew he was famous, but hadn't expected him to be so different in person. Their first meeting had been at a production briefing. Hyun-bin had walked in wearing simple jeans and a t-shirt, his famous face hidden behind sunglasses. When he removed them and their eyes met, Tony felt something shift in the air. "You're the cinematographer?" he'd asked in English, sounding surprised. "Is that a problem?" Tony had responded coolly. "No. I've just never worked with a female cinematographer before, especially not one so young. I'm 28. And I'm very good at my job." He'd smiled then, a genuine smile that transformed his entire face. "I look forward to seeing that." Over the next 8 weeks of filming, they developed an unexpected connection. Hyun-bin would stay after shoots to watch Tony work, asking questions about angles and lighting. She'd teach him about African cinema history, and he'd share stories about the Korean film industry. They talked about everything from their dreams to their fears to their favorite foods. "You're not what I expected," Hyun-bin had said one evening as they watched the sunset over Lagos from the hotel rooftop. "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Someone who sees me as Hyun-bin the actor, not just Hyun-bin the person." Tony had looked at him seriously. "The actor is impressive, but the person is better." That was the night he kissed her for the first time, and Tony felt herself falling despite every warning in her head about the complications of loving someone from a completely different world. When filming ended, Hyun-bin didn't leave. He extended his stay in Lagos, then extended it again. They spent every moment together, exploring the city, meeting her friends, and slowly falling deeper in love. He met her family in her small hometown, and her mother had pulled Tony aside with concern in her eyes. "Are you sure about this, my daughter? He's from a different world. His people might not accept you." "Love doesn't see color or borders, Mama," Tony had said with the confidence of someone who hadn't yet been tested by reality. 6 months later, Hyun-bin proposed on the same rooftop where they'd first kissed. "Marry me," he'd said simply. "Come to Korea. Build a life with me. I know it won't be easy, but I love you enough to fight for us." Tony had said yes without hesitation. But the moment they arrived in Seoul as an engaged couple, everything changed. The media exploded with the news. "Hallyu star Hyun-bin engaged to African cinematographer" dominated headlines. The reaction was mixed at best, viciously racist at worst. Tony's social media was flooded with hate messages. "Go back to Africa. You're not good enough for him. Gold digger. He's just using you for publicity." Hyun-bin's agency released a statement supporting the relationship, but his family was a different story. His mother refused to meet Tony for 3 months. When she finally agreed to dinner, she'd spent the entire evening speaking only Korean, knowing Tony couldn't understand, essentially excluding her from every conversation. "Your mother hates me," Tony had said later that night. "She doesn't hate you. She just needs time to adjust. She wouldn't even look at me, Hyun-bin. I'll talk to her. It will get better." But it hadn't gotten better. The small wedding they planned became smaller when most of his family refused to attend. Tony's family flew in from Nigeria, filling the groom's side of the venue because his side was nearly empty. The photos from that day showed a bride trying to smile through heartbreak. The first year of marriage was a constant battle. Hyan was away filming for months at a time. When he was home, he was exhausted and distant. Tony tried to build a life in Seoul, but without speaking Korean fluently, everything was a challenge. She'd submitted her portfolio to Korean production companies, hoping to continue her cinematography career, but was rejected repeatedly. Maybe you should take a break from working, Hyan had suggested after another rejection. Focus on learning Korean, settling in. I don't want to be a housewife. I want to work. I had a career, Hyan. And you'll have one again. Just give it time. But time only made things worse. Tony became isolated, lonely, and increasingly aware that she was losing herself. The confident, talented woman who'd commanded film sets in Lagos was becoming a shadow who wandered around an empty apartment waiting for her husband to come home. The breaking point came on their second anniversary. Hyan had promised to take the day off, to celebrate together. Tony had cooked Nigerian food, worn the traditional outfit he'd once said he loved, and waited. He arrived home at midnight, reeking of soju and apologizing. The director wanted to discuss the next project. I couldn't say no. You could have called. You could have texted. I waited for 12 hours, Hyan. Don't make this a big deal. I'm here now. No, you're not. You haven't been here for months. They'd fought that night, really fought for the first time. And when the anger faded, they'd had the first honest conversation in months. Do you regret marrying me? Tony had asked quietly. Hyan had taken too long to answer. No, but I regret how hard this is. That was when Tony realized that loving someone wasn't enough if they weren't willing to fight for you. Things had improved slightly after that night. Hyan made more effort to be present. But the damage was done, and Tony couldn't shake the feeling that she was an obligation rather than a choice. Then came the morning when Tony discovered she was pregnant. She'd taken 3 tests to be sure, and each one showed 2 clear lines. She was terrified and excited and unsure how Hyan would react. They'd never discussed children. They'd barely managed to maintain their marriage. She'd planned to tell him that evening, to make it special despite everything. But then she'd overheard that phone conversation, and suddenly the pregnancy test felt like a burden instead of a blessing. Now, standing in their bedroom with Hyan staring at her, Tony made a decision. I'm going back to Nigeria, she said quietly. Don't be ridiculous. You can't just leave. Watch me. She pulled out her phone and showed him the flight booking she'd made months ago, just in case. I leave tomorrow. I thought about canceling it, but after what I heard today, I think it's exactly what I need to do. Tony, stop. Let's talk about this rationally. There's nothing to talk about. You've made your feelings clear. I was never permanent. I was never enough. That's not what I said. It's what you meant. Tony finally showed him the pregnancy test. And I won't raise a child in a home where they're seen as a mistake. Hyan stared at the test, his face going through a dozen emotions in seconds. You're pregnant. 3 months. I was going to tell you tonight. And now you're leaving? Taking my child to another country. Your child. Tony's laugh was bitter. 5 minutes ago, I was just temporary. Now suddenly you care. I've always cared. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. My mother, the media, my career. Everything is complicated. Then uncomplicate it. Choose me. Choose us. Right now. Hyan looked torn, genuinely torn, but he didn't speak. And his silence told Tony everything she needed to know. She started packing that night. Hyan watched, but didn't stop her. The next morning, he drove her to the airport without saying a word. At the departure gate, he finally grabbed her hand. Don't go. Please. Give me a reason to stay. I love you. That's not enough anymore. Tony pulled his hand away and walked through security without looking back. Back in Lagos, Tony moved into a small apartment and reconnected with her old life. Her former colleagues were shocked to see her back and even more shocked when they learned she was pregnant and separated from her famous husband. But they rallied around her, offering her work, support, and friendship. "You're glowing," her best friend Amara said one afternoon as they had lunch. "Pregnancy suits you." "I feel free," Tony admitted. "For the first time in 2 years, I feel like myself again." She threw herself into work, taking on cinematography projects for Nigerian films and commercials. Her reputation had only grown during her time away, and directors were eager to work with her. The pregnancy became a beautiful part of her journey rather than a complication. Hyan called every day for the first month. Tony answered a few times, but the conversations were always the same. He wanted her to come back. She wanted him to fight for them properly. He couldn't promise his family would accept her. She couldn't live with that uncertainty. Eventually, the calls became less frequent, then stopped altogether. 6 months after leaving Seoul, Tony was 5 months pregnant and filming a high-budget production when she met Kelvin. He was the film's producer, a successful Nigerian businessman who'd invested in the entertainment industry. He was tall, confident, and genuinely kind. "You're incredible behind that camera," Kelvin had said during a break. "The way you see light, it's like poetry." "Thank you. That's actually the nicest thing anyone said about my work in months." They started talking during shoots, then having coffee between filming days. Kelvin never pushed, never made Tony uncomfortable. He simply became a friend who listened and made her laugh. When he learned she was pregnant, he didn't run. "The father," he'd asked carefully. "Out of the picture. His choice, not mine." "Then he's a fool." As the pregnancy progressed, Kelvin's presence became more constant. He accompanied Tony to doctor's appointments when she needed someone there. He helped her set up the nursery in her apartment. He made her laugh when she was overwhelmed and held her hand when she was scared. "Why are you doing all this?" Tony asked one evening as they assembled a crib together. "Because you deserve someone who shows up," Kelvin said simply. 3 weeks before Tony's due date, Kelvin took her to dinner at an upscale restaurant overlooking Lagos Harbor. They'd finished eating when he pulled out a small box. "I know the timing might seem strange," he said, opening it to reveal a beautiful diamond ring. "And I know you're about to have another man's baby. But I love you, Tony. I've loved you since the day I watched you command that film set with such confidence and grace. I want to be there for you and your child. Not as an obligation, but as a choice. Will you marry me?" Tony stared at the ring, emotions overwhelming her. Kelvin was everything she'd wanted Hyan to be: present, supportive, choosing her every single day. But she was about to have Hyan's baby. Could she really move on? Before she could answer, her phone rang. The screen showed a number she hadn't seen in 2 months, Hyan. "I need to take this," she said quietly. Kelvin nodded, understanding in his eyes. Tony stepped away from the table and answered. "Hello, Tony." Hyan's voice was rough, emotional. "I'm in Lagos. I've been here for 3 days trying to work up the courage to see you. I need to talk to you. Please. I know I don't deserve it, but please give me a chance." "Where are you?" "Looking at you right now." Tony turned and saw him standing at the restaurant entrance, phone to his ear, looking thinner and more exhausted than she'd ever seen him. Their eyes met across the room, and her heart clenched. She walked back to the table where Kelvin waited. "I'm so sorry. I need to handle this." "Go," Kelvin said gently. "But Tony, remember you deserve someone who chooses you. Every time." Without hesitation. Tony met Hyan outside on the harbor walk. He looked at her pregnant belly, and tears filled his eyes. "You're so beautiful," he whispered. "What are you doing here?" "I've been miserable without you. Every single day, I wake up and regret letting you walk away. I was a coward. I let my fear of my family's disapproval and my career complications stop me from fighting for the woman I love. But I'm done being afraid." "It's too late, Hyan." "Is it?" He gestured toward the restaurant. "Is that him? The man who makes you happy? He proposed tonight. He wants to be a father to your child. He shows up, Hyan. Every single day, he shows up. I know. I've been watching you for 3 days. I've seen how he looks at you, how he takes care of you. And it kills me because that should be me." Hyan's voice broke. "But I'm not asking you to choose me over him if he makes you happy. I'm asking you to let me prove that I can be the man you deserve. The man I should have been all along." "How?" How do you prove that? Come with me. Just for 1 hour. Let me show you. Against her better judgment, Tony agreed. They drove to a hotel conference room where Hyun-bin had set up a projector. He pressed play and Tony watched as a video montage began. It showed Hyun-bin at a press conference announcing he was taking a break from acting. Then footage of him at his mother's house, having what looked like an intense conversation. His mother was crying, and Hyun-bin was speaking firmly. Then clips of him selling his Seoul apartment, meeting with lawyers, visiting Nigerian embassy for visa applications. What is this? Tony asked. The last 2 months of my life. I quit my contract with my agency. I told my mother she either accepts you or loses me, and I meant it. She cried for days, but she finally agreed to go to therapy to work through her prejudices. I sold everything in Seoul. I'm moving here, Tony. To Lagos. I've already started setting up a production company. Korean-Nigerian collaboration projects. I want to build a life here, whether you take me back or not, because this is where you are. This is where our child will be born. Tony felt tears streaming down her face. You gave up everything? I didn't give up anything that mattered. I chose you. Finally, I chose you. I know I'm late. I know I hurt you. I know there's a good man in that restaurant who might be better for you than I ever was. But I'm asking you to give me one more chance. Let me prove that you were never replaceable. You were always the choice I should have made. I'm about to have a baby in 3 weeks, Hyun-bin. I can't handle more uncertainty. Then let me be certain. Let me be the one who's at every appointment, every ultrasound, every moment. Let me be there when our child is born. And if after that, you still think Chitty is better for you, I'll step back. I'll co-parent with Grace. But please, give me a chance to fight for us. Tony looked at this man who had broken her heart and rebuilt it, who had finally chosen her when it mattered most. She thought about Kelvin, steady and present and kind. She thought about her baby, growing inside her, deserving a father who would truly fight for them. I need time, she said finally. I need to think. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. Not anymore. Over the next week, Tony met with both men separately. Kelvin listened when she told him about Hyun-bin's return and his promises. He held her hand and said, I won't compete with him for you. You need to figure out what your heart wants. But know that whatever you decide, I'm here. Hyun-bin showed up every day. Not to pressure her, but to prove his words with actions. He attended her doctor's appointment and held her hand during an ultrasound. He helped her finish setting up the nursery. He cooked Nigerian food after watching YouTube tutorials, making her laugh when he completely butchered jollof rice. He spoke to her mother on video calls, apologizing in broken Yoruba for hurting her daughter. He was present in ways he'd never been before. Why no? Tony asked one evening as they sat in her apartment. Why did it take losing me for you to become this person? Because I was living in fear, Hyun-bin admitted. Fear of disappointing my family, fear of what people would say, fear of failing. But the biggest fear was losing you, and when it happened, I realized nothing else mattered. You asked me once to choose you. I'm choosing you now. Every day. For the rest of my life, if you'll let me. 2 days before her due date, Tony made her decision. She called both men to her apartment. Kelvin arrived first, and the understanding in his eyes told her he already knew. It's him, isn't it? Kelvin said gently. I'm so sorry. You've been incredible, and you deserve someone who loves you without reservation. And you deserve to give your family a real chance. Kelvin kissed her forehead. Be happy, Tony. That's all I ever wanted for you. When Hyun-bin arrived and saw Kelvin leaving, he looked terrified. Tony? Come in. We need to talk. I know. And I'll spend my life making up for it. But you also came back. You fought. You changed. And I believe you're different now. I believe you'll keep choosing me. I will. Every single day. Then yes. Let's try again. Let's build the family we should have had from the beginning. Hyun-bin pulled her into his arms, both of them crying. I won't let you down. I promise. Their daughter was born 2 days later, a beautiful girl with Tony's eyes and Hyun-bin's smile. They named her Zuri, which meant beautiful in Swahili. Hyun-bin was there for every moment of the labor, holding Tony's hand, whispering encouragement, crying when Zuri took her first breath. Hyunbin's mother flew to Lagos a week later. She held her granddaughter and cried, apologizing to Tony in broken English. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Thank you for giving my son another chance. Thank you for making him a better man. 6 months later, Hyunbin and Tony renewed their vows in Lagos, surrounded by both their families and friends. This time, it wasn't about appearances or obligations. It was about two people who'd been broken and rebuilt, who'd chosen each other when it mattered most. You called me replaceable, Tony said in her vows. But you came back and proved I was irreplaceable. You fought for us. You changed your entire life. You chose love over fear. And that's the man I want to spend my life with. I was an idiot, Hyunbin said, his voice thick with emotion. I almost lost the best thing that ever happened to me. But you gave me a second chance, and I promise I will never take you for granted again. You and Zuri are my life. My choice. Always. If this story touched you, hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional love stories. Comment below and tell me, do you believe in second chances? Would you have chosen Hyunbin or Chitty? I want to hear your thoughts. Thank you for watching, and remember, you deserve someone who chooses you without hesitation. See you next time.